We got 7 different stories from 7 different news outlets, guys. It's time for another episode of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Regan here with another episode of Regan's News Round, where I cover 7 different stories from 7 different news outlets. And we start with The Guardian here with the headline that Keir Starmer's backed the call for change in law on assisted dying. The Labour leader said MPs should be given a free vote on the issue recently brought to the fore by Esther Raskin. So there's obviously a lot of controversy around assisted dying and whether it is right that those should help those wanting to die when they are in deep amount of pain. And it's a very sensitive topic, and it's one very hard to pick, hard to digest, really, unless you are in that situation. Now, of course, if you know someone who is in a deep amount of pain, who is in unbearable pain, and they want to die, and you know that they want to die, then you will want to assist them in doing so. But obviously, in certain countries, certain laws, by doing so, you're committing a crime. There needs to be, but how do you know that person is doing the right thing? And sometimes, yeah, when there's those who are in a vegetable state, sadly, when they cannot speak or hear, and you don't know what they're going through, how do you know that they want to die? It's a very difficult subject to talk about, and I don't think there is a right way to do this. But what I will say is that I don't think people should be punished in assisted dying if we know, if a court, I would say, if we know for I wouldn't say 100%, but at least strongly believe that person is doing it with the intention of goodwill, and not just doing it for the sake of, let's say, that person actually has a huge amount of money, and when they die, that money gets inherited to their partner or something like that. It's trying to read, every case is going to be extremely sensitive and difficult, so it's a tough one, and it's a discussion that we should always try to bring to forefront. So let's read into this. So Keir Starmer has backed calls for a change in the law on assisted dying after the issue was brought to the fore by Dame Esther Raskin. The Labour leader added that he believed any vote by MP should be a free one because of the divisive and strong views. Yeah, 100%. I think that's a very good point. You're not going to get everyone on board on one way or another on this issue. This is way too divisive. You're going to have people who believe that there should be no assistance in dying whatsoever. You're going to have some people who believe that those should have a right to be able to make that decision for their loved ones. Like I said, there's no right way of doing this, and I think a free vote is a fair way to do it. Starmer was speaking after Reskin, the Child Life founder and broadcaster, this week said she had considered the option of assisted dying if her ongoing lung cancer treatment did not improve her condition. The Health Secretary Victoria Atkins early on Thursday said the issue was always treated as a matter of consent, but declined to say whether she thought it was time for another vote in Parliament. I think that if there was a will in Parliament, that it will happen. If members of Parliament, backbenchers, wanted to happen, she told the BBC Radio 4 Today programme. Starmer, who backed a change in the law the last time the issue was voted on in the Commons in 2015, had said, "On the question of assisted dying, there are obviously strong views in both ways of this, which I respect, and that's why traditionally there has always been dealt with a private member's bill, and a free vote seems appropriate to me," he told reporters during a visit to Estonia, where he was meeting British troops. "I personally do not think there are grounds for changing the law. We have to be careful, but it would have to be, I think, a free vote on the issue of whether there is such a divisive and strong views." Starmer was the Director of Public Prosecutions when a decision was made not to prosecute the parents of Daniel James, the 23-year-old who had been paralysed in March 2007 during rugby training, and he died in a Swiss clinic in 2008. Assisted suicide is banned in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, with a maximum prison sentence of 14 years. There is no specific offences or assisted suicide in Scotland, but enthusiasts can be prosecuted as murder or culpable homicide. Raskin revealed earlier this week that her cancer had progressed to stage 4 in May, and she has joined the Swiss organisation Digitase, which offers physician-assisted suicide to members with terminal illness or severe physical or mental illness. She called for another free vote on assisted dying as she felt she was important the law catches up on what the country wants. Kate Mulhouse, the former Home Minister, said earlier this week that the sentiment in Parliament had moved significantly since 2015. When a vote was last held on that occasion, a bill to legalise the practice under stricter controls was defeated by 330 votes to 118. We are getting towards a majority yes, says Malthouse, who chairs the all-parliamentary group, on the choice at the end of life. The Labour frontbencher Darren Jones told Sky News on Tuesday that there was clearly a demand from the public to have a debate about changing the law. If the public want to have a debate about this, the House of Commons is there to serve the public and show it should be debated, he said. I definitely think there needs to be a debate on it again. Assisted dying is as we guys know, is a very sensitive and difficult issue, and I think it's wrong that they have to leave the country in order to get assisted dying, to go to Switzerland to do that. I think it's absolutely terrible. I do think there do need to be some barriers in place. I do think some people need to jump through a few hoops in order to be able to assist in dying without breaking the law. The law should be changed that people can do it, but there should be barriers put in place for that. And the reason why I say that there should be barriers put in place is because people could take advantage of it. That's my thought process of it. If we're going to change the law to allow assisted dying in the UK, of course, as I said, it's an extremely difficult situation. We have to put barriers in to make sure that that everything is done at the will of that person who wants to die, to the best of our knowledge. And it is, like I've said, there's no right way to do it, because some people don't want to die, despite what they're going through. Some people want to. It's and we can't always know for certain what they do or they don't want, guys. I think that's really important to remember. So the next one, guys, is from Sky News. It's about the UK economy. The headline is: the UK economy is at the risk of recession, official figures have revealed. No economic growth in April to June and 0.1 contraction in September to July to September, the ONS revision shows. So once again, guys, our economy is contracting, not growing. We're not going in the right direction. This is once again, there are obviously world factors taking place. No one's denying that there are factors in the world taking place, such as war in Ukraine, oil prices, the Gaza war, other conflicts. The world economy is not exactly in the best shape or form. Nobody's going to debate that. However, we're specifically talking about the UK economy, the British economy, and what Britain can do within that economy in order to stop it contracting. And the absolute truth is that the Conservative Party have not done anywhere near enough anything to stop that. They've been in power for 13 years, and while you can try and point fingers elsewhere about what's going on outside in the world, this is the British economy, and within the British economy, the British government can do things to stop it contracting. They can pass laws, change bills to make things easier and better for businesses in order to help grow the economy. And they have chosen not to do that. They keep talking about reducing inflation. Okay, that's all well and good. What else are you guys going to do? I keep hearing about, it's not always about what's going on in the world. This is about what's going on in the UK. And I think it's important to remind people of that instead of just constantly pointing the finger elsewhere. So the UK economy has performed worse than previously thought and below the expectations of economics, new official figures showed, meaning the country has taken its first steps towards recession. There's been a downward revision of the GDP, the key measures of economic growth, the Office of National Statistics, the ONS, said on Friday morning. Rather than remaining stagnant as first thought, the economy contracted 0.1% in the first 3 months from July to September. Economics have been expecting growth of 0.2%. The country is technically in recession after a 2-3 month period of a shrinking economy. If the final data of the fourth quarter of 2023 from October to December, which will be released next year, shows a contraction, the country will officially be in a recession. I can pretty much say we're pretty much on the cusp of it. We have not been growing at all in the last 13 years. We have not. Austerity was the dumbest thing that the British government ever done. Rather than push on, that we pulled back. And we've suffered as that. Obviously Brexit has also played an impact. COVID has definitely played an impact too. No question about that. But it's how they bounce back from this, and there hasn't been a really great response from the British government in terms of responding to these issues. Another amendment was made to the second quarter of this year from April to June, rather than growing 0.2% as was previously announced. The ONS said there was actually no growth. So there's a graph here, guys. This is sourced from the ONS. This is how the UK economy's fortunes have fluctuated. This is GDP quarterly estimates here. So obviously from 0 to 0.5% there you can see. So this is from bottom from quarter 1 2022 all the way to quarter 3 2023. So you can see in 2022, obviously 2022, we went to 0.5% and then we dropped to 0.1%, and then we went negative in the third quarter of 2022. We bounced back to 0.1%, 0.3% in 2023 at the start of the year, and then quarter 2 no growth, no negative, and quarter 3 negative growth. Just really worrying times, obviously, for the economy. Changes were made to the statistics as regular monthly business surveys and facts showed less spending, said the ONS Director of Economic Statistics, Darren Morgan. Weaker performances from smaller businesses, particularly hospitality and information technology, influenced the adjustments, Mr. Morgan said. In the most recent quarter, film production, engineering, design, and telecommunications all fared a little worse than expected. That data takes time to receive and process, he added. The thing is that even though there are less people shopping, I've been just in the last week of Christmas. I haven't done any Christmas shopping because I've done pretty much nearly every single bits of Christmas shopping. But we went into central London on Thursday, me and my partner, because we wanted to go into central London just for the day. And I was kind of curious to see what the streets would be like. And obviously London is very different to the rest of the world, so it's to the rest of the UK, so it's not really a fair comparison. But I would say it's not as busy as I would say it was last year or the year before. There's definitely shoppers out there. There's definitely people spending money, but it doesn't seem like as much as it used to be. It's gonna be curious to see how the retail sector has performed this Christmas comparison to other Christmases, especially with those in medium low incomes with less money in their pockets. We know that the rich and the wealthy have plenty of money, but we're looking at those who don't have lots of money and how they're handling themselves in that. So you can see that there. I'm not going to click the video, guys, but if you want to check it out, the link is in the description if you want to watch the video there. But the monthly contribution to monthly GDP, you can see it's just not good at all. Not good at all. In the last 3 months period, there was a 0.2% fall in the large service sector, offsetting to a 0.4 expansion in the construction output and a 0.1 boost in the production centre. The amount is the biggest turn down in consumer-facing services since September 2021, when the COVID lockdown was imposed. Responding to the figures, Chancellor Jeremy Hunt said the medium-term outlook for the UK economy is far more optimistic than these numbers suggest. He's not admitting that this is a Conservative Chancellor who doesn't give a shit. I'm just going to put that out there. He don't care what you think. He doesn't care that things are going bad. We've seen inflation fall again this week, and the OBR expects the measures in the autumn statement, including the largest business tax cuts in modern history, and tax cuts for 29 million working people will deliver the largest boost to potential growth on record. It will not. People need money put in their pockets. Cutting taxes is not going to put money in people's pockets. People need money in their pockets. They need increase in their wages. People are not getting enough money to make ends meet. It needs to stop helping the rich and start helping the medium and low income. And we've been banging on about this forever. You know, a universal basic income would be a good way to start putting money in people's pockets. as opposed to just letting them die on the streets when they've got nothing to feed themselves. Data also published on Friday morning recorded a far above expectations of 1.3% increase in retail sale volumes for November. After a possible Black Friday boost, expectations were for a 0.4% growth. Retail figures, sale figures are important as household consumption is the largest expenditure across the UK economy. It is indeed. People still need to buy essentials, obviously. But I'm curious to see how non-essential retail will do during the Christmas period. It will be interesting to say the least on that. But him trying to play it up like it's all okay, and it's kind of not. He's clearly not doing well, and you can see that and hear that from what people are saying. The economy has been handled quite badly by the Conservative government. They've poorly handled it. They've not responded well to Brexit. They've not responded. They've not given clear guidance and clear future for businesses in the UK. So businesses are questioning where they're going to go and what's going to happen with them. People with struggling with money in their pockets, they need to know what's going to be happening there. There's too many questions and not enough answers, and that's the thing. And they're just looking at it as, just keep on trucking along. Completely deluded, guys. Completely deluded. Right, this one is from the BBC. I know nobody's not looking forward to this one, but I do think it's one we need to talk about a little bit. Whether this is a boost for the British economy or not, we'll have to wait and see. So the United Kingdom signed a financial deal with Switzerland. So what's this all about, guys? So the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, has signed a deal in which he will say will make it easier for the UK and Swiss financial firms to deal with one another. Trade in financial services between the UK and Switzerland is worth over £3 billion. The new Bernard Financial Services Agreement means that Switzerland and the UK will recognise and accept each other's regulations. We're opening each other's markets up to other ways that will boost competition and choice, Mr Hunt said. The Chancellor insisted that the agreement was only made possible by the UK being outside the EU. This is BS, and we all know that's BS. We could easily have had an agreement with Switzerland within the EU, just like the Switzerland has an agreement with the EU on a number of things, just like we have an agreement with America on a number of things. This is an absolute flat-out lie from the Chancellor. This is to try and make Brexit seem like a positive spin again. Still waiting for the benefits of it, so don't take that anyway seriously. The new type of agreement moves away from the aligning legal structures which can be used as a template for future deals, Mr Hunt said. Under the agreement, firms based in the UK will be able to serve Swiss clients while largely relying on the familiar UK firms, and vice versa for Swiss firms. Firms working in asset management, wholesale, insurance, banking markets will see greatest benefit, Mr Hunt says. Will this be for the... Sounds like this is just for the rich and the wealthy, doesn't it? Negotiations have been underway since June 2020 when Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was Chancellor. The boost of British finance firms have welcomed the fact that the deal is dynamic, which means that the relationship will evolve as regulations in both markets change over time. Switzerland is home to over $2 trillion in wealth, controlled by some of the world's richest people. It also is also a major centre for insurance and reinsurance, which is how insurance companies insure themselves against abominably large or catastrophic losses. This is also a key strength of London, home to Lloyd's, which is the world's largest insurance market. Mr Hunt said this kind of agreement plays to UK strength. He admitted that the change will help only in the modest of ways, but it sends a signal that the UK is a financial centre is motoring, he added. It's not been motoring since we left the EU. BBC understands that getting agreement from the insurance industry in both countries was the trickiest part of the deal. I'm sure, that sounds like we've had to give some concessions there potentially. What do you guys think? Switzerland is the UK's third largest non-EU trading partner after the US and China. Finance chiefs in the UK hope that the Swiss deal will form a model for the agreement with other major financial centres, with Singapore mentioned by several people contacted by the BBC. London's position as a pre-eminent European financial centre has been dented in recent years as trading in the shares of European companies have moved to European exchanges including Paris and Amsterdam. Yeah, because they don't have that link to the EU anymore. It has also seen a number of high-profile UK-based companies, including ARM Holdings, move their primary stock market listing to New York. Meanwhile, Switzerland has seen the collapse of Credit Suisse, one of its biggest and oldest banks. The signing will provide some cheer for both sides. Mr. Hunt and his counterpart carrying Silla meet on Thursday. That was yesterday from the time of this recording. Separate to this financial service agreement, the UK is currently negotiating a deeper and wider free trade agreement with Switzerland. Again, this could have been done within the EU, guys. Important to caveat. In the wake of the UK's exit from the EU, the government has been trying to overhaul financial regulations to improve London's attractiveness in comparison to other European rivals. It's a bit harder to do that now, considering we're not inside the EU. Again, I need to point that caveat out. Just over a year ago, Mr. Hunt's announcement, the so-called Edinburgh reforms, 31 measures that include plans to scrap a cap on bankers' bonuses and allow insurance companies to invest in long-term assets such as housing and wind farms. Bankers' bonuses is such a stupid thing. Why are we giving them so much money is ridiculous. These guys are the reasons that the economy crashed back in 2008. However, the chair of Treasury Select Committee, Harold Baldwin, has described the measures as a damp squid. It's not the be-all and end-all, this financial deal. It's not going to make the world a difference, especially for the ordinary people in the country who are struggling as it is with money in their pockets, guys. It's not going to make the biggest of deals. This feels like to me is just a way for the rich to stay richer, to continue to be wealthy, and I don't see the UK Labour government, if they're going to be coming in the next general election, I don't see them changing too much of it, if I'm absolutely honest. Is this a good thing? Yeah, for the few, but not for the majority. That's the best way I can put it. But not really happy about it whatsoever. Guys, while you're here, hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media and hit that bell notification icon so you'll be notified when I upload another video. And of course, if you want to financially support me, you can do so by buying me a coffee or joining me on Patreon. And don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. It really does help out. So guys, the next one we've got is an exclusive from iNews. They always have some interesting exclusives here. So the Home Office won't approve asylum claims of migrants on the Bibby Stockholm. The revelations raise questions about whether the Home Office will have to move asylum seekers into hotels in order to hand them their decision. What? Yeah, this. I saw this headline and I was thinking, wow. So, but here's the thing, right? So I've heard reports of people who didn't want to be put on the Bibby Stockholm, forced upon the Bibby Stockholm when they didn't even want to be on there. And now we're being told here, and now according to this, we're being told that they're not even going to get their asylum application approved, which is outrageous. Like they're already not in the best of conditions as it is. Now I've heard one or two videos that I've highlighted saying that that the Bibby Stockholm is not as bad as some other conditions in some places. Now we don't know for certain. We can only stress these are allegations of how bad some of these things are. But we do hear mainly that most of the places that asylum seekers, migrants are held up in places while their application is approved is pretty darn dreadful and awful. That's what we've heard from most of them. But the fact that their claims aren't even being looked at, or they won't even be approved, what's the reason behind that? It just seems like a bit of spite to me. So, like, what's the reason behind this? Though the Home Office has blocked migrants on the Bibby Stockholm barge from having their asylum claims granted while on board, the eye can reveal. In a letter to Dorset Council, the local authorities for the barge, the Home Office said that it will not be serving any casework decisions to asylum seekers while they are living on the barge. The policy also applies for those being housed at former RAF base MDP Wethersfield, which can hold up to 1,700 people, and will eventually for Scampton, which has a maximum capacity of 2,000, but is not currently in use. So, why are they applying such a policy here? Why are they just rejecting their asylum application? Surely they can't do that, can they? Something tells me that the European Courts of Human Rights are going to have their hands cut out for them with this. Under the new approach, asylum seekers can only be given their decision on the claims that they have been moved from the barge to an alternative accommodation across different parts of the country, according to the letter seen by the Eye. The Bibby Stockholm was established in a bid to cut down the use of hotels and high cost of asylum accommodations. But the revelation raises questions over whether the Home Office will have to move asylum seekers back into hotels in order to hand them their decision. So, from the sounds of it here, according to this letter seen by the Eye, the idea for them is to force them to go to places and parts of the country where there's less migration. This is what it sounds like. Yeah, that they can only get approved unless they really spread out. No, you can't hang around in London. You have to go all the way up north or go all the way southeast. That's kind of what it feels. That's kind of like the premise of what this sounds like to me. Bibby Stockholm was established in a bid to cut down the use of hotels and higher costs of asylum accommodations, but the revelations raised questions over whether the Home Office will have to move asylum seekers back into hotels in order to hand them their decision. Aid workers have claimed the policy unfairly penalises those placed on the Bibby Stockholm and in the MWP, Wethersfield and Scampton by adding additional stage to their asylum claim process and risking delays if new accommodation cannot be found quickly. A letter from the Home Office suggests that the Dorset Council had raised concerns about having to find accommodation for those living on the Bibby Stockholm whose claims were granted. The barge can hold up to 500 people and the maximum amount of time an individual can stay on board is 9 months. Okay, so they've got to shift them in 9 months, apparently. In a letter dating July 2023 to Dorset Council, the head of Asylum Support wrote, "A number of you raised concerns about the lack of clarity with regards to the issue of serving decisions to asylum seekers while they are being accommodated in Wethersfield, Portland and Scampton. I am happy to confirm that we will not be serving any casework decisions in these sites. This means that the service user will be relocated to dispersed accommodation before an asylum decision is served. Once a claim is granted, the individual is given refugee status and is no longer eligible for Home Office housing and must find alternative places to live. They must find housing privately or, if needed, present as homelessness to the local council and join the waiting list for social housing. Some refugees have had to sleep on the streets after their claims were approved, having struggled to find accommodation due to widespread housing shortages and homelessness waiting lists." So, I can already see people in the comments saying, well, what about the British homelessness? What about our issues? And yes, of course. We need more homes. We need to build more homes, of course. But just because their application process has been approved doesn't mean that these people should be just thrown out on the street saying, here you go find work, go find accommodation, you're not our problem anymore. That's just blatantly outright disgusting. These are human beings who've gone, some of them have mental health issues, some of them have gone through explicit trauma, some of them have lost loved ones. This is no way to treat human beings, and it's no different in whatever you're going through. There has to be a way to handling them, and this is not the way to handle it in any way, shape or form. I think it's absolutely disgusting. 3/4 of asylum seekers made in the UK are approved after the investigation by the Home Office decision makers. According to the latest figures, as asylum seekers are not able to work and many are fleeing conflict zones, they are frequently reliant on homelessness support once their claim is approved. Charlotte Khan, head of advocacy and public affairs at Care for Callous, said there are people on the Bibby Stockholm who claimed asylum years ago and are still waiting for a decision. This is no way to run an asylum system, and is certainly no way to treat human beings who have fled some of the worst things imaginable, such as torture and persecution. This policy will only cause more despair, all the while adding to what is already a record asylum backlog. A total number of asylum cases awaiting an initial decision currently stands at 109,000, down from the peak of 139,000 at the end of February. Sunak has pledged to clear the backlog of legacy asylum decisions and any outstanding claims before the 28th of June 2022 by the end of 2023, representing 52% of the total backlog of people waiting a decision at June 2023. There have been reports, obviously, that one of the ways that they've been trying to clear the backlog is basically write them off the list and basically just throw them out, so that they don't have to deal with it at all, to make it look like they've actually cleared most of the backlog, which they haven't. The government looks set to miss the target, with sources revealing the figures was at 11,000 in early December. Mr Sunak has also made stopping small boats from crossing the channel crossing the channels central to his pre-election pledges, insisting the government will push through its Rwanda deal despite the UK Supreme Court ruling the policy was unlawful. So far this year, more than 29,000 people have crossed the channel in a small boat, a reduction of around a third of 2022's record high figures. 90% of those who arrive by small boat to make an asylum claim, meaning that they are fleeing persecution and claiming their rights to receive protections elsewhere. To make an asylum claim in the UK, the individual must be on British soil, but there is no visa for those wanting to come to the UK to seek asylum. Not all asylum seekers in the UK come via small boat. These account for 37% of asylum claims. 3/4 of asylum claims made in the UK over the last 12 months were accepted at initial decision after assessment by the Home Office. A Home Office spokesperson said, "We are committed to ensuring that asylum claims are considered without unnecessary delay. In the latest published figures show that we have reduced the initial legacy backlog by more than 80%. Individuals will have their asylum claims considered while on board the Bibby Stockholm. Once the decision is ready, individuals will be moved to a new accommodation where they will receive their decision." I've said this before and I've said this again, guys. These are human beings with emotion and feelings. I'm gonna keep banging on that. I'm gonna keep banging on that tone, guys, because it is really, really important to stress that the way they are being treated, the way they're being handled, is so inhumane and cruel. And I'm worried that Labour are going to be treating them the same way, and it just doesn't sit right with me at all. I understand we have our own issues in this country. I understand that we have growing homelessness in the UK. I understand that we have a cost of living crisis. I get that. The government needs to be able to tackle all these issues and come up with reasonable solutions. Sometimes it's not always a case about throwing money at the problem, guys. Sometimes it's a case about having a clear plan and being able to execute that plan. And the Conservative Party doesn't have a clear plan to deal with immigration in this country. Now, when you hear, now, just for those who actually are thinking of voting reform or believe reform are in the right way, have they been clear about what their plan is? Have they been clear about how they would execute their plan if they were in government? And I've seen what they said, and still, they're going to have to break all sorts of laws, international laws, European laws, everything under the sun. The Reform Party have said they will do in order to bring down the backlogs to stop people crossing. And trust me when I tell you, they will take away your rights. Your rights will be gone if you vote Reform UK, guys. Really, they are not to be trustworthy whatsoever. They think that they are not speaking in your interest. They certainly do not speak in the interest of the United Kingdom, and you'd be a fool to vote for them. Apparently Santa has come under fire, guys. This is absolutely shocking news, guys. I cannot believe this insane broken news, guys. While you're here, make sure you hit the like button, share across social media, and if you're not already subscribed, please do. So let's hear what's happening here with Santa under fire.
Welcome to Broken News. There are claims that cancel culture is out of control after Father Christmas himself was forced to step down from his position. His centuries in the role are over after a social media storm. Our reporter has more.
Operating from here in Lapland, Nicholas St. Santa Kringle Festive Christmas Claus had become one of the most famous people in the world. But now he's been told he won't work again, after online activists labelled his behaviour as problematic and dripping in white bearded privilege. Environmentalists have claimed that despite flying millions of miles every year, Mr. Christmas has made no attempt to offset massive carbon emissions, and they claim his association with the Christmas tree industry, or Big Tree, means he tacitly supports deforestation. He's also been accused of racism after records showed he hadn't once given a present to a child who's a practicing Muslim or a Jew. Well, in a statement issued by his lawyers, the 400-year-old Mr. Christmas, who lives at a fixed abode determined by global magnetic field, said, "This is incredibly unfair. They claim that I break into loads of houses every year and eat a mince pie in each one. No one can eat that much, not even Mike Graham. They also say it's creepy that I watch people sleep, but again, they don't say that about Mike Graham." In response, his critics have said Mr Christmas is a danger to other aircraft. Pissed off his bonce in charge of a sleigh, they say it's well known that he's downing in the region of 3 billion glasses of sherry every Christmas Eve before flight. In a statement, these same activists say, this guy claims to be a saint, but runs what may well be an unpaid sweatshop of small people. He refers to them as elves, which is in itself a microaggression. Our investigations also raise animal welfare concerns. One of Mr Christmas's reindeer has definite swelling and reddening of the septum, suggesting an over-reliance on cocaine to meet unrealistic work demands. When questioned, Mr Christmas calls it magical Christmas fairy dust, but he can't fool us. Back to you.
Thank you. Well, having been cancelled, we understand that Father Christmas has signed a deal to host a prime-time evening show on GB News. It'll be called Claws Out and will feature people who used to be famous, repeatedly claiming that you can't even say Happy Christmas anymore. What a lovely story. Well, that's all from Broken News. You're up to date and do have a very happy non-denominational winter break.
Well, there it is, guys. Santa's gone woke and he's going to be on GB News, guys. God help us all. Guys, if you haven't already, I cannot stress this enough, guys. Please subscribe to Larry and Paul. Check out their content. Go watch the video on their channel. Give them a like. Share their videos across social media. Subscribe to them. They do some fantastic work. And there they are again, highlighting woke culture. Once again, guys, it's pretty damning to say the least. Oh dear, I know, guys, I know. The woke is getting to everyone, isn't it? To be fair, is that the right one? I'm just going to check that's the right one. Yes. So the next article we got, guys, is from the Independent. So ministers climb down on plans to make Brits earning $38,000 a year bring their spouses there to the UK. The government is accused of another half thought through idea to placard the Highlanders to back their own benches. So basically what's happened is, so you remember the bill that they were going to bring forward, that basically it was going to cost them £38,000 for those coming abroad to bring their families and spouses to the UK. Well, looks like they are climbing down on that plan, guys. It looks like they're doing a bit of a U-turn. Zoe Gardner tweeted, haha, told you so, as well, because there was way too much anger, way too much backlash from this. I think this was also from within the Conservative Party as well. I think they were realising, oh, we can't be this harsh, unfortunately. But it still doesn't change the fact that they're making it more and more difficult for people to come to the UK. So let's read into it, guys. So the government has performed a partial climb down on new visa rules critics claim that would tear couples and families apart. The move was one of a raft of measures designed to slash the number of immigrants by 300,000 a year. But ministers have postponed plans to allow those earning 38,700 or above to bring their spouses to the UK. Instead, the threshold will still rise sharply in the spring, but to a lower figure of 29,000. This is still way too high, in my opinion. This is way too high. This is not going to be enough. It's got to be a much lower. It's just not fair. It's still too high for me. It's still way too high. Like 38,000 was ridiculous. 29,000 is still too high. It's just not right. It's not fair that there's still going to be people out there who are not going to be able to come to the UK and make that. People are still going to have to make that choice of whether to bring their loved ones here, whether they can bring their loved ones here and be able to meet such a threshold, or going to have to leave the United Kingdom and choose between their loved ones and their families. It's not right in any way, shape or form, guys. The Liberal Democrats, who have dubbed the original plans the Family Breakup Bill, great line, the Family Breakup Bill. Wow, what a great line. Family Breakup Bill, that's a good one. Accused the government of a thought-through idea. Family Breakup Bill, guys. Remember that slogan. That's a great name for it. That's really damning. But Rishi Sunak faced a backlash from Tory MPs who called the move deeply disappointing. And a former Tory minister suggested Number 10's plans had been vetoed by the Treasury Health Minister Lord Bethell saying, "My children aren't getting everything they asked for this Christmas. Seems it's the same in Downing Street." The crackdown was part of the plans to cut net migration after it soared to nearly 750,000 in 2022. The Home Office Minister Lord Sharp of Estham confirmed in answer to a written parliamentary question that the threshold would be raised in the spring to 29,000. The current level is 18,600, which means 75% of the UK's workers meet this requirement. It was raised to 38,700, just 30% would. Lord Sharp also confirmed no date was given for when the threshold would rise beyond 29,000. I still think I can understand. Here's the thing: 18,600 is a reasonable amount for most medium income earners. For most people, 29,000. I just think it's a steep too far. I just think the level is steep too far. If I had no choice but to increase it from 18,600, I would probably do maybe 24,000. Just not 24,000 maybe. But I'm obviously not an expert. But I want to try and be as fair and reasonable as possible. But at the same time, it's like part of me is like, at the same time, it's like we need more workers in this country as well. So James Cleverly, the Home Secretary, insists that the Home Office would still reduce net legal migration by 300,000 a year, saying the British people were rightly frustrated and wanted to see action. But Tory MP Jonathan Gullis said the decision is deeply disappointing and undermines our efforts to control migration. When we left the EU, when Brexit happened, we were told that we were going to take back control of our borders. This guy is a dummy. He does not understand anything. Yvette Cooper, the MP, the Shadow Home Secretary, said, "This is more evidence of Tory government chaos on immigration and the economy." My apologies. On their watch, net migration has trebled as skill shortages have got worse and worse, and they still have no proper plan to link the immigration system to training or workforce planning. They failed to consult on anyone on their new proposals and took no account of the impact of steep spouse visa changes on families next year. So it's no surprise that they are now rowing back in a rush. Ms Cooper said the government should seek advice on detailed policy changes from the Migration Advisory Committee, experts on both immigration and the labour market. Lib Dem's Home Affairs spokesperson Alistair Chimmel said, "You have to wonder who is in charge at the Home Office, or if anyone is. It is clear to everyone that the raising of the earnings threshold was unworkable. This is yet another half-full idea to placard the hardliners to back their own benches." Yeah, it's just to appease a small amount of people. James Cleverly needs to put down the spade and stop digging. Decisions like this have been made by experts and politicians working together. He should also publish the advice from the Treasury and the OBR, that's the Office of Public Responsibility, about the impact his package of changes will have on the economy. Absolutely, it's just not paying attention to the main issues of this. I mean, obviously, I think it should stay as it is. If I'm honest, I don't think the threshold should change at all. I still think, we make it difficult. We make it difficult enough as it is, but we need more. We need more workers anyway in the United Kingdom. But people will also argue that that our country is full and we can't take any more people, and yet we still have vacancies up and down the country. So explain in the comments down below. Anyway, moving on. We've got two more stories for you guys. So this one, oh my god, I could not believe this story when I saw this. But then again, we should not be surprised, given it's not right. It's just not right. This one from Open Democracy, guys, is exclusive from them. So the police are disproportionately targeting black rough sleepers under the archaic law. The exclusive reveals that data reveals black people are more likely to be arrested for being homeless under the Virago Act. Arrested for being homeless. Arrested because they have absolutely nothing and they've got nowhere to go, no family, no friends, nowhere to stay. And this is how they're being treated. I'm sorry, this is pretty vile, to say the least, guys. Like, these people need help. And why are we disproportionately people based on the colour of their skin? This is inhumane. It's just disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting, guys. So not only are you more likely to experience homelessness if you are black, but you're also more likely to be arrested for it under an archaic law that is still being used by the police. According to the Freedom of Information, the FRI request sent to 35 police forces in England and Wales, 8% of people arrested under the Veragari Act are black, twice as high as the proportion of black people in the total population. The Veragari Act is a law dating back to 1824, that criminalises rough sleeping. It was also introduced to deal with ex-servicemen who had become homeless after returning from the Napoleonic Wars. The government finally vowed to repeal it in February 2021, later acknowledging it was an antique that no longer fit for purpose. The former Housing Secretary Robert Jenrick said it should be consigned to history. But instead of just scrapping the law, ministers want to replace it in the new criminal justice bill, which campaigners said would still criminalise rough sleeping. And until that happens, the Veragari Act remains in force. Grassroots groups the Museum of Homelessness told Open Democracy it was dismayed but not surprised to see that racism is back into how homelessness people are treated in the UK. The FOI request seen by tenants advocacy group Generation Rent found that there have been at least 4,200 arrests under the Veragari Act between 2018 and 2022. Of the people arrested, 3,274, that's 78%, were white, lower than the 82% total population of white people, and 327, 8% were black. According to the Office for National Statistics, 5% of people sleeping rough in England in 2021 were black. Two police forces account for half of all arrests under the Act of England and Wales in the last 5 years. Merseyside Police and the Metropolitan Police make 55% of all arrests, 1,154 and 1,143 arrests respectively. There has, however, been a decline in usage of the Act. Generation Rent's research show arrests in 2022 are nearly a third of what they were in 2018, down from 1,213 to 443. A slight positive, but that is a slight one at best. While the government has admitted the Act needs binning, some senior Conservatives are still aligning to the 200-year-old law. In November, the former Home Secretary Suella Braverman claimed rough sleeping was a lifestyle choice, and that we cannot allow our streets to be taken over by rows of tents occupied by people. Well then, find them accommodation. Oh wait, we haven't built enough homes. Well, build more homes. Days after her comments, enforcement officers in London were seen tossing tents belonging to people experiencing homelessness into bin lorries. Yes, I covered a video on that went viral if you hadn't seen it. If you look on my channel for homeless tents being destroyed, if you haven't already seen that video, it's pretty horrible to say the least. But what I said in that video then, and I'm going to say it now, is that Suella Braverman's comments gave Camden Council the green light to get rid of those tents. The council originally, at the time of that recording of that video, didn't admit to it, and then they did admit to it after. So just wanted to put that caveat in there. Ben Tomwilly, chief executive of Generation Rent, said any continued use of this pre-Victorian law to criminalise people who are already suffering on our streets shames our country, and sees it used in a discriminatory way shows even more clearly that it needs to go. The Veragari Act turns 200 years old this coming year, and we call on the government to end this cruelty. It is vital that any new laws do not simply reintroduce the criminalisation of homelessness, and that the government focuses instead on measures to end homelessness. We know that the government is bringing in precarious legislation to replace the Veragari Act, which, based on their policy records, will no doubt make the situation worse. Museum of Homelessness co-founder Jess Turtle told Open Democracy, "We are seeing increased harassment on the streets, and this is indicative of the broader arc of crackdowns, cuts and criminalisation of poverty." Yeah, you're criminalising people who are homeless. Why? This is not the answer, and nor is institutional racism. We call on all homelessness charities, outreach teams and grassroots organisations to step in and challenge racism when they encounter it on the streets or in homelessness settings, and it has to end here. Absolutely. This is a disgusting story. What are these people supposed to do? What are these people supposed to do? They just, like, if they don't want to be homeless, nobody chooses to be homeless. And there are many, many reasons why people end up homelessness. That people don't want this. People think it's they choose to be homelessness. There are all sorts of circumstances that people end up homeless, and it's a horrible, horrible situation for them. And rather than deflammatize them and downpour them when they're already down in the gutters, this is how we treat them. It's disgusting, absolutely effing disgusting, to say the least, guys. They deserve better, and we should try to help these people. You get them on their feet. You help them with a bit of money. Try and find councils. I understand councils are stretched with houses. They need to find homes for these people. Sorry, try not to sneeze. It's frustrating. It is frustrating, to say the least, guys. So the last story we got for you guys is from Byline Times. Another potential scandal going on that we may not or may not be knowing about. So the headline is: the Department of Education is under fire for failing to reveal UK border school abuse allegations. So Elon examines the dreadful record of sexual abuse in border schools and asks whether the conditions which allow historic assaults to flourish are now being addressed. So this is a picture at pupils at Eton College where a former teacher had been charged with sexual offences, apparently. Let's read into it. So the UK Department of Education, the DfE, is facing criticism for its handling of sexual abuse allegations in boarding schools, after refusing to state how much such allegations have taken place over the years to Byline Times. Following the Freedom of Information request, which sought detailed information about boarding schools in this country, the DfE declined to provide specific data on sexual abuse allegations, citing cost concerns. The department admitted to holding information related to sexual abuse. However, it argued that the cost of complying with this request would exceed the cost threshold applicable to central government, which is £600. That's 3.5 quarters working day to locate, retrieve and extract information. Well, basically what they're saying is that we don't want to give that information away. Oh, I wonder why. There are at least 858 government record boarding schools in England, not including children's homes. To find out how many of these schools failed to meet the national minimum standards on safeguarding for boarding schools, the DfE said it was necessary to examine each and every school against the published inspection reports on its website of Ofsted and the Independent School Inspectories, the ISI. Only then would you know how many total schools failed to meet the standard. The DfE has also suggested that individual local authorities and local police authorities might hold some of the requested data. What is known is that the 2022-2023 ISI annual report noted that 27 boarding schools, 10.7% of the 253, failed to meet all standards. 27 of them failed to meet all standards. All of them. 21 boarding schools examined failed on safeguarding, with 8 specifically failing on the safety of borders. However, this is just 253 schools examined. There are still 1,416 ISI inspected schools. Their refusal of the freedom of information begs the question: does the Department of Education even know how many of the hundreds of boarding schools might be failing on safeguarding? The answer is they probably don't. The journalist Alex Recton, in the 2018 documentary Boarding Schools, The Secret Shame, reported on the 31st ongoing investigations into 171 individuals of alleged sexual assaults at UK boarding schools. Only half of the UK's police forces responded to the FII's request, so it is likely more than that. Of note, this is not a legal requirement for schools to report abuse allegations. Alex Retton told Byline Times that the allegations don't get to ISI or even Ofsted, partly because the schools don't seem to bother to report such allegations, but also because of the court order under the Children's Act, where the schools persuades the judge not to name the school in question, which tends to keep it out of the records of the courts. Dr. Danny Tangan, clinical lead of the Truth Project at the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse also showed concerns for accountability, telling Byline Times that the lack of centralised data makes both public scrutiny of conduct in boarding schools more difficult and inhibits child safeguarding and prevention of child sex abuse. In our research, we found evidence of boarding school pupils experiencing institutional betrayal resulting from the failure to protect them from abuse and attempts to cover it up. If boarding schools are to address this historic falling from then transparent, accountable data is an important step in demonstrating the culture change that is badly needed. In November, it was reported that Jacob Leonard, a former teacher at Eton College, the school attended by Prince William and Prince Harry, had been charged with 14 counts of sexual offences against a teenage boy while he was employed at the school from 2010 to 2012. He denies the charges. The same month, a tribunal found Martin Miles from the King's School, Canterbury, to have piled a pupil with alcohol in the 1990s before asking him to sit on his lap while aroused, tried to sexually touch the youngster while he was bathed in another, and on occasion told him to pull down his trousers for punishment. It's all obviously of stress these allegations, but still, this is shocking stuff, to say the least. And it's really disheartening. It really, really is. In September, Alexander Rolls was sentenced to 16 years imprisonment at Bradford Crown Court for committing 44 sexual offences between 2011 and 2015 at Elizabeth Ellerborough's Collegard, the Yorkshire boarding school. His youngest victim was 8 years old. My God. That's horrible. Also in September, Paul Drodd, the former teacher at Wickfield School, was given a 4-year prison sentence for abusing boys at a private school in the 1980s. The boys were aged between 10 and 12. This is a complete failure in these boarding schools. In August, a former deputy head teacher at Thomas Prep School in Battersea, a school Prince George and Princess Charlotte attended, was jailed for child sexual abuse offences. In July, Piers Lachomard, a former teacher at the Oakwood Preparatory School in Chichester and the Salisbury Cathedral School in Salisbury, was jailed for sexually abusing boys at a border school between 1966 and 1985. Alan Pickford was also jailed that month for 7 years for raping a teenage girl in the 1990s at Aldering School in Hertfordshire. In June, Russell Tisken, former head of sixth form at Tonbridge School, was found guilty of sexually abusing 2 pupils some 17 years apart in the all-boys boarding school and a day school in Kent. In May, John William Whittle was jailed for 18 years at York's Crown Court for raping a child in the 1990s at Coral Manor School near Haringey. In April, Reneved David Barnes was also said to have allegedly raped a boy at Sudden Valley School in Kent in the 1980s. An ex-pupil claimed he was just 13 when the chaplain had invited him to his home and sexually abused him. Also in April, the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry heard that boarders at Loreto School in Mouldiesburg, East Lorraine, were exposed to sexual, physical and emotional abuse, including from the late Guy Ray Hills, a French teacher at the Loreto Junior School between 1951 and 1967, who was described as a prolific sexual predator. In February, it was reported that Anthony Cook, a former Coronation Street actor, was banned from teaching after acting out his sexual fantasies and flirting with pupils in 2016 at Trident's Park School of Performing Arts. And in January, the former teacher David Price was charged with sexually assaulting a child after a BBC investigation revealed dozens of allegations about his time at Ashton House in East Sussex in the 1970s, where he taught the future Prime Minister Boris Johnson that month. Alan Coggin, a former teacher at Old Buckingham Hall School, a Suffolk boarding school, was also given a suspended prison sentence for sexually assaulting a 10-year-old pupil while he was working as a maths teacher there in the 1980s. And teacher Ian Featherstone was given a suspended sentence for grooming a child for sex while working at a private boarding school, Abersham School, near Ashworth in the Derbyshire Dales. This is not easy to talk about, but it's important to talk about it. While there were no reports of teachers being arrested in boarding schools for current sexual assaults, all the cases above are historic, and it is clear that it can take years for the truth to come out about abuse, if at all. To what degree are the conditions that allow these historic assaults to flourish being addressed now? The answer, it seems, may not be enough. The residential school investigation reports published in March 2022 examined institutional responses to child sexual abuse in border schools and other educational establishments, and concluded that despite 20 years of enhanced focus on safeguards, schools were not safe for children as they should be, and that children's interests do not always come first when allegations or concerns of sexual abuse arise. The report identifies shortcomings and failures in the current system of protection, regulation and oversight. The report noted that despite the additional risks to children at boarding schools are set out above, there is no additional safeguarding requirements or advice for boarding schools set out in the statutory guidance. Why? Am I the only one who's a bit gasped by that? No additional safeguarding? Hello? We're talking about children here. And there is no requirement for boarding school staff to have specific safeguarding training for appropriate for their roles. It also contains the stark line: boarding schools should be said to be provide the ideal environment for grooming. How such potential for harm is effectively reported upon and responded to the annual ISI report is also open to question. My God, this is so horrible. For instance, in June 2023, weapons were found in the Bloodskill School after 2 pupils sustained serious injuries in an attack there. In April, an ISI had concluded that the school had met all the requirements for the welfare and safety of its pupils. What? After an attack, it met all its requirements. Similarly, Wycombe Abbey was given the all-clear for such requirements by the ISI in 2021, but earlier this year, Caitlin Scott Lee took her own life at the school after reportedly fixating on the school detention that she had been given. Her father is advocating for schools like Wycombe Abbey to offer better support to neurodiverse pupils. My deepest sympathies with that father. Similarly, Sir Thomas Battersea, where Deputy Head paid £65,000 for boys under 10 to India to be sexually abused repeatedly on camera, were given the all-clear by the ISI on welfare and safety in 2022, even though Matthew Smith was arrested in November of that year. Given the all clear. Given the all clear after. ISI said it does not investigate individual concerns about a school and that all concerns received by the ISI are passed on to the Department of Education. ISI said it will not investigate specific concerns, rather such inspections are commissioned by the Department of Education. What recent scandals have done is to keep the spotlight firmly on the private education sector. Needs to safeguard pupils and call for greater transparency and accountability are likely to grow louder as more and more adults reveal how their boarding school teachers traumatized and abused them as they were children. This is disgusting. This is happening still. This is still happening. All these cases, these are still happening, and nothing's being done to change about it. If this is all to be true, this is deeply, deeply frustrating. And the thing is that it affects them for the rest of their lives. It has traumatic effect, and some people have taken their own lives over it. It can lead to. It can seriously damage them mentally, physically, emotionally, and it could lead them down that dark path, guys. When we talked about that dark path before, if this is all to be true, this is a dreadful failure of our education system. This is a dreadful failure of border schools, and clearly there's not enough being done to protect pupils. More needs to be done. Whatsoever, this is just not in any way good enough. And innocent children are being suffered here as a result of this. And I don't like talking about these things, guys, but I think it's important to remind ourselves of them. To remind ourselves here that these things are happening and they need to be called out for it. And I hope Barline continues to call out these kinds of acts, because it needs to be told. And it really puts me off wanting to have send any future children to boarding schools, that's for sure. It's a very scary thought nonetheless, guys. And on that, guys, we've reached the end of Regan's Newsround. I just want to say a massive thank you if you've watched all the way through. It's greatly appreciated. If you can, before you go, hit the like button, share across social media, hit the bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when I upload another video. And if you want to financially support me, you can do so by buying me a coffee or joining me on Patreon. Feel free to leave some comments down below what you guys think of some of those news articles and stories as well. Share your feedback, would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.